into the Warchant.com report. I'm Jeff Cameron alongside Gene Williams and Ira Schoffel, Warchant.com. The Noles coming off a devastating loss. Florida State will take on South Florida. Down in Tampa, Raymond James Stadium, ABC noon, the kickoff. Florida State gives up 63 points. It was historic. 7 rushing touchdowns, most points allowed, and 4th largest margin of defeat in school history. Where do you begin? How do you wrap your mind around all of this? The most glaring problem to you, Ira, about this historic beating?
Well, where do you start, Jeff? Where do you start?
Got a lot to choose from, brother.
Yeah, there were a lot of problems. Obviously, on offense, defense, even special teams. They went into the game, I think, number 2 nationally in net punting. They left the game number 90 nationally in net punting. And so it's just that kind of game. They didn't do anything well. To me, the biggest glaring concern is a macro issue, not even the micro. There are all the little things you can focus on. But from a macro standpoint, I think I was disheartened, and I'm sure a lot of people were disheartened by watching a Louisville team challenge FSU and basically try to instigate FSU into getting chippy. They tried, they pushed, and they shoved, and they spiked the ball, and they got in FSU's huddle. They did everything they could to try to get FSU riled up, and FSU just had no interest. And I think from a fan base standpoint, and certainly talk to former players and people like that, people are just, they wanted to see more fight out of this FSU team. And I know it's hard when you're getting steamrolled, but you just didn't see that.
Yeah, you can't be apathetic and indifferent during a 63-point performance for a Louisville team that we knew was good, but nobody looks that good against that kind of talent for Florida State. But it happened on Saturday. I think the bigger question now, Gene, is whether or not that's an isolated incident. Certainly the score and the difference of the score of 43 points is. But this is a 6-4 team over their last 10 games, Gene. They're 4-4 against anybody who's any good.
Out my good stats for this section.
Well, I'm sorry. I think we're.
But you nailed it there.
The point,
exactly
right? I mean, that is a really big problem. So is this part of a larger issue?
Well, you have to say it is because you just threw that out. If you're 4-4 in your last 8 games, this is supposed to be a top team. I mean, one in the country. You look at all the recruits across the board. They've been consistently recruiting in the top 5 every year. You're going 500 against FBS teams. There's an issue there. And it goes, you look at some things here, systemic issues with the offensive line. We continue to see it. All of last year they couldn't block. Well, this was the year they were going to be able to be, all the experience was coming back. They were going to be better. I don't see any different. If anything, it seems worse than last year. Can't even get your running backs off this year. You continue to have problems with the spread teams, with mobile quarterbacks. You see it over and over again, but do you see any improvement in that area? I don't. They're ranking in the bottom, and you look at some of the stats right now. They're 92 in rush defense, or 107 in scoring defense, 73rd in rush offense. I mean, it's insane for a team that is this good to be in the bottom half of almost every major standing in the NCAA stats. So yes, to answer your question, Jeff, there's some much bigger issues here than just really laying an egg in one game.
Well, it becomes a problem because this is a South Florida team that's really well coached. Willie Taggart's doing a great job down there. They've won 10 of their last 12 games. They're 3-0 currently. They beat Syracuse 45-20 last week. Dalvin Cook had a huge day against South Florida last year. In fact, 266 yards on 30 carries, 3 touchdowns. The problem is, though, Dalvin Cook hasn't looked like Dalvin Cook. These games coming up, these next 3 games are going to help define the rest of this season and perhaps how people feel about this coaching staff and Jimbo Fisher. Talk about where they're at in this situation.
Yeah, I think coming into the season, a lot of us talked about this 4-game stretch is really being pivotal to this team and what they were going to do this season because you have 4 teams that all you could make a case could beat you. Even USF, a team FSU won by 20 points last year at home, but we know that game was a little bit more close than it looked at the final score. And also this game is going to be on the road, where FSU also, I believe in their last 6 games outside of Doak Campbell Stadium, I think they're 2-4. So going on the road against anybody is going to be problematic. So going to USF, I think is going to be a challenge. North Carolina is going to be a challenge. You do get them at home. But if you're reeling, say you don't play well again this game, I think what you're concerned about with this team right now is their psyche and the confidence. Because if you don't have your confidence, it's hard to do even the things you're capable of doing, let alone anything beyond that. So, again, I think they need to play well in this game to kind of get them back on the right track against a North Carolina team that will be very challenging, and then going on the road to Miami, a team that hasn't beat you since Jimbo Fisher's been here and has got to be salivating for this opportunity.
You know, Gene, we asked at the beginning of the year kind of the broad macro question where Jimbo Fisher fits in the big talking points of coaches and where he ranks. And I think we kind of concluded that he was just below Nick Saban and Urban Meyer. He just brought up a stat about on the road 2-4 in the last 6 games. You know, I know we don't love him, but Urban Meyer is 19-0 at Ohio State on the road.
Had to throw that out, didn't you?
He hasn't lost a game.
Wow.
So we're not even close right now. It's unsettling, but what in the short term can be done to fix this current problem?
Well, the tendency, you listen to the fans on social media, the message boards, they want to overreact, fire coaches. It's early in the season. You can't do that right now. But there are some things you can do. You know, you start with personnel, first of all. We've looked at that offensive line. There's some issues there. I mean, I think Rick Leonard's going to be a fantastic tackle, but maybe he's not ready yet. Maybe you need to put Rubel. Maybe you need to put Kelly there. I think you need to put someone with a little bit more experience at this point. And then you start a 17-year-old the last couple of games at right guard. You know, come on. I think, again, Dickerson's going to be a better player, but get some more experience in there because something's not working. You shake that up. And I think at running back, you just brought it up with Dalvin Cook. It looks to me like Patrick's running harder. It looks like Ryan Green's running harder. You know, I know you don't want to bench your All-American, but I mean, at the very least, give those guys some more reps. It seems like they're running harder to get them in. And I even think in the secondary, having so many breakdowns, you know, shake up personnel. Ira's real high, and Marcus Lewis did not have a great game, and some of these other guys didn't. You got a talented guy in Levante Taylor in there, Carlos Becker, we hear good things about. Why not at least bench those guys for a few series, get their attention, bring some of these guys in? And I think scheme-wise, there are some things you can do a little bit. Simplify. You know, Ira had a story on some of the former players talking about some of the defensive stuff. Simplify the scheme a little bit and maybe just get aggressive with those guys. Use their athleticism. Hey, we may get beat sometimes, but go after, make that team pay for it. So I think there's some definite tweaks you can do to improve some things.
Well, they're going to have to because obviously giving up 63 points for the nation to watch and scoff at is really untenable. And now they're facing a USF offense that has some talent, is moving the ball and putting up points. In fact, we'll preview South Florida when we come back on the Warchant.com report. All right, welcome back to the Warchant.com report. Of course, Florida State going on the road to take on South Florida. This is what the head coach, Jimbo Fisher, had to say about the South Florida Bulls.
Oh, tremendous. They've lost 2 games since we played them. They're very good, physical up front, inside guys. D tackle 10, he had committed to us, remember. Big, strong inside guy. The players we've recruited, a lot of their guys are dynamic, got playmakers, long. They're a good team. Throws it in, runs it. I mean, he can run it, he can throw it. You know, he played there at Miami Jackson. I remember him in high school now. Really good player, and was good against us last year.
Jimbo, in terms of back, what type of run?
I'm sorry?
Back?
Oh, they're running back. Physical, I mean, he's a good player now. I mean, he's strong, hard to get on the ground at times, you know what I'm saying? Good balance, body control, strength. I mean, he's a good player now. He's a really good player.
That's Jimbo Fisher talking South Florida football. By the way, USF is on a roll, really, in their last 7 contests. They've scored more points than any other such stretch in the program's 19-year history. So they've been lighting it up. Also, in 4 of those 6 opponents that they've beaten played in bowl games. So it hasn't been against all fluff teams. Marlon Mack has been great. So has Quentin Flowers for the offense that they run. It's up-tempo. They're well coached, and they're executing that offense right now. South Florida feeling really good about themselves. How good is Quentin Flowers, Ira?
He's a nice player. I mean, he's a nice player. He's no Lamar Jackson by any stretch.
Nobody is.
But on the flip side of that, I don't know that you need to be. If Florida State doesn't defend the option better than they did against Louisville, it won't matter. Any quarterback could have done. I mean, Lamar Jackson's a phenomenal talent, but any quarterback really could have done what he did. He was basically unchecked coming out of the option. So he's a decent player. I think Marlon Mack's a really nice back.
Yeah.
He did some damage against FSU last year. But the big this is about FSU's defense more than it is about USF's offense, I think.
By the way, South Florida's offense with those running backs, with that quarterback, has now rushed for over 100 yards, or 200 yards in 9 straight games. Yeah,
and as Ira said, I mean, it's a little different than Louisville where the running back is really the main threat. Now, the quarterback can run, and he will mess you up on that zone read occasionally. They run both of those guys, but Max legit. He's got over 2,500 career rushing yards, their all-time rusher there at USF. So he's a guy you got to watch out for. But again, I agree with Ira. I think this is more about the defense. How do you handle those guys? It's the assignment. It's the eye discipline. They're going to hurt. They're going to up-tempo you. They're going to try to throw you off your game. And that defense is like they were against Louisville. They're going to put up PlayStation numbers again against FSU. So again, a tough opponent coming off the last one.
Couple competent receivers, too, including one very experienced receiver in Rodney Adams. He's a senior out of St. Petersburg. They've got Reshawn Bronson, a big receiver, 6'3", 200 pounds. Really, you're talking about the run here. This is a game where I guess we got to say that the defensive line has to show up big and eliminate at least one of the options. You know, one of the things that happened in this last game against Louisville was that Florida State took away absolutely nothing. anything that Louisville wanted to do, they could do. You got to take something away. I think this is a big game for the defensive line.
Yeah, and like you said, they just didn't show up. I mean, Louisville does not supposed to have a great offensive line, but when they wanted to run the ball up the middle, traditionally, they were able to get 4 or 5 yards a pop. They ran the ball, they moved the pile. Florida State's defensive line did not show up. Now, Josh Sweat was banged up. We saw DeMarcus Christmas get hurt in that game. We saw Derek Nottie limping around in that game. DeMarcus Walker was really the only defensive lineman who really, I think, brought A-plus effort. So I don't know. If those guys bring the same effort, they're going to have a tough time. I don't think they are going to dominate. I'm curious to see if either those guys step their game up or maybe you start playing some of these younger defensive linemen, Fred Jones, Arthur Williams, see some of those guys to see if they bring more effort because they should be able to dominate a USF offensive line. But the way they played last week, it's hard to see it.
How do you explain Nottie and those guys getting pushed off the ball like that?
That makes no sense. We've talked before in the preseason, he's maybe the strongest player to ever suit up for Florida State. How can you squat 750 pounds and be pushed off the ball? And we've heard these stories how one hand he's pushing linemen around. Maybe he was a little banged up. I don't know what the issue was. Something was going on there with him. But I got to think this is a game. You've got 3 new starters on their line. One of them is a freshman right tackle that's moved from guard. Their center was a guard last year, was a backup guard. I mean, this is a makeshift offensive line. There was ever a game built for those guys to impose their will and to dominate. This is it because scheme won't matter. If they dominate in the trenches, it won't matter. I think FSU will do well if they can do that. But it's a big if after last week.
Plus, if you're a defensive player, first of all, it's predicated on its violence. It's pride. It's a lot of what for. You got to want to tackle. You got to want to hit somebody. When you get gashed the way they got gashed, if you got an ounce of pride, if you care about the guy next to you, you care about that locker room, the culture you develop, you're going to have to come out here frothing at the mouth. Well, you would think.
If there's not, there's a problem. There's really a problem.
Well, because they laid down Saturday.
Yeah, if they lay down again, then you know they've quit on them.
Well, South Florida's defense, by the way, let's cut to them. They've got 7 starters returning, but more than anything, they run the 4-2-5, same thing that we're running. I was amazed by a couple things. First of all, they got off to a terrible start against Syracuse, who can move the football, but they only gave up 3 points after the first quarter. Secondarily, they were on the field for a damn near ACC record 105 plays, and so they should be tired, but they actually, you talk about bowing up. Yeah. After that horrific first quarter, they really allowed for this offense to come storming back. So you look at this defense, it's hard to know what they are, but they have some pride about what they do. I will say that. Their strengths and weaknesses as you see it.
Well, I mean, 6 of the 7 of the back 7 are back. So, I mean, they've got some linebackers in town. Augie Sanchez is a really nice player, leading tackler for them. He's a guy that's kind of the leader of that defensive secondary. They can ball hawk. They had 17 interceptions last year, so they got some quality there. Weaknesses, I think, again, in the line a little bit. They've lost 3 starters. They got Sennett, who is a middle interior guy. He's a good player. Florida State actively recruited him, so he can do some things there. But those 2, I think the 2 defensive ends are brand new. This should be hopefully a case. I can't imagine FSU's offensive tackles should win that battle, but that's a huge if again.
It is a big if. Anything you're worried about with the USF defense?
Well, I just don't know how much we can read into what they've done so far because they've put up some good numbers. They've played well at times, but they played Northern Illinois, they played Towson, and they played Syracuse. Now Syracuse can pass the ball. They've got that controlled passing game and up tempo, and when they get in a rhythm, they can move the ball. But it's not a great team, so it's hard to know. This is a big step up in competition for USF's defense for sure. But on the other side, man, they're going to bring the house because what we saw on Saturday is Florida State really had a hard time with those delayed blitzes, those disguised blitzes, and I think USF, those are not that hard to put in. I think USF's going to bring the house and see what DeAndre can do.
They tacked through the A-gap last week, and something I want to say, we're right to point out that the offensive line has been bad. Dalvin Cook has been atrocious in pass pro. That's another problem. It's not Izzo was terrible last week blocking. So it's not just the offensive line. The other guys that have to help out there when the offensive line did get it right, the other guys whiffed. So you got a myriad of issues here. When we come back, we'll take a look at the keys to the victory against the South Florida Bulls here on the Warchant.com report. All right, we're back. Warchant.com report. Don't forget to visit the Warchant.com game day page. I'll get it right eventually and find out all the details for Saturday's game against South Florida, noon on ABC down in Tampa. Let's get straight to it. You got to ask the question, how important is it for this program and this season to win this game on Saturday, guys? This is for any one of you guys. I mean, I would guess that if you're going to salvage something from this campaign this year, it's of vital importance. But I also think in terms of the psyche of the fan base, if you lose this game, Listen, the grace period for this staff as a whole is not going to be what it was for Bobby Bowden, who was a legend, who had ingratiated himself to this community for years on end, had won championships, and had been here forever. This is a smaller window where people will flip. I really believe that. And that's not necessarily Jimbo's fault, but the point is, you build up a lot of grace period and cachet when you win a national championship. But if you stick by guys who aren't getting the job done and you begin losing games to in-state rivals, who you vanquished rather easily since you've arrived, and that's another thing that's built those good graces, I think it flips quick.
It would, and it's funny that 2009 campaign, USF was pretty much the game that tipped everything over to the other side. And here we're looking at USF again. You're right. I really think these next 3 games are really going to define the season. I'm not sure they can go 3-0 unless something dramatically changes, and you lose one of those games, for all intents and purposes, the season's over. You can't get back in the ACC at that point, because even if the tie-break scheme, you're going to be the lowest ranked team with a loss to one of these teams, it's not going to happen. So yeah, I think it's absolutely huge these next few games to see what's going to happen with the program going forward, which means in the offseason, Jimbo Fisher's going to have to make some tough decisions, and they're decisions he's not going to want to make, but I think he has to make them for this program to move forward.
He's talking about going 3-0.
No, I'm saying I don't think it's going to happen.
You don't think it's going to happen? Okay, I was going to say, because, we want that, but the truth is, it doesn't look like a team that's going to win these next 3 games.
Well, and here's the problem. I think this next game is the most winnable of the 3, probably. I think North Carolina is maybe a better team than USF. But if you lose this game, what does it do to your confidence? These players, I think they were searching at the end of that game. They were searching for something to believe in. They didn't find it in that game. They have to play well just to kind of get some of that belief back in themselves and in the coaches.
All right, which segment has to step up the most, and what are the keys to victory for this football game?
Well, I think front 7 for the defense in this, and I'll tell you why. I think the defense is our point. I don't think USF's, their defense is okay. They got some nice players, but I think FSU blocks it all in this game just a little bit. I think they'll be fine. I think they'll be able to move the football and score points. But how will FSU, again, against a hurry-up spread team with a mobile quarterback, a viable running game, can that front 7, which should be superior in terms of experience and athleticism, can they control what happens at the point of attack? They should be able to, but if they can't, they're in trouble. To me, that's the number 1 key right here.
Yeah, I think it starts on defense with stopping the read option and kind of controlling South Florida's running game. Offensively, though, I think there's some big things they got to do. They got to run the ball. The problem with this team right now is Dalvin Cook is, whether he's 100% or not, they cannot run the football right now, and this is too much to put on a young quarterback to try to win games throwing the ball on the road. DeAndre Francois is not ready for that. He wasn't ready for it Saturday. He won't be ready for it this week. They've got to establish the run, whether that means changing some personnel on the offensive line, which Jimbo hinted at, or if it's changing the running back, giving Amir Rasul and these Ryan Green and Jaquez Patrick some of these carries. They may have to do it. And then, the other thing is, I think defensively, these linebackers have to play 100% better. We heard so much about Matthew Thomas in the preseason. Roderick Hoskins played a lot last year. These guys are very athletic. They were missing. They were missing in action. They were not there. I know Matthew Thomas had a lot of numbers. He had a lot of tackles, but he did not do his job. They did not do their job, and it has to be a 180-degree flip this week. And
play like you care. Play like you care at all, that you have some pride with the uniform you're wearing, the guy that's lined up next to you, the school you represent. I can't put this on players because the coaches have to get players ready to play, obviously. And when they play that poorly, it suggests that the message is not getting home, without question. But as that game tilted in favor of Louisville rather quickly, this team was quick not to get off blocks. This team was quick to kind of go through the motions and just play the game of football without any real passion, without any real heart. I don't take that lightly. Football players take great pride in what they do. It's a really hard sport to play. It's a sport that requires athleticism and a physicality and a toughness mentally. I didn't see any of it, and that really was disturbing. All right, so is it possible that what happened on Saturday is a good thing for the ACC? Because Louisville announces their presence with authority, to say the least, and all of a sudden you've got, we would think, if Florida State bounces back, 3 real viable teams nationally.
I think it's great for the ACC because it's somebody other than FSU now that is kind of up. They've got 2 teams in the top 5 that are like elite for the ACC, and it's not FSU. In October 1st, unless something crazy happens, you're going to have another. This is going to be the center of college football. It's going to be Louisville and Clemson, and that's another time when all eyes will be on the ACC. And if FSU happens to win these next 3 games, There's going to be another one when they play Clemson in late October. It'll be another one that's featured game in the ACC. So I think bad for FSU, obviously, but very good if you're just a proponent of the conference getting better.
Do we need to get Louisville over to the Coastal?
Oh, I think there's no doubt. There's no doubt about that.
Unless Petrino goes to Auburn after the season, then they'll go back to what they should be.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing is, when Bobby Petrino came to the ACC, he made the comment he thought the ACC Atlantic division was as good as the SEC West, and everybody kind of laughed at him. It was people mocked him for it, but right now I think you definitely can make that case. It's probably the best conference in college football.
Yeah,
best division.
If Florida State's any good.
If Florida State's any good.
That we don't know about. Let's take a look at our weekly picks, friends. All right, Pittsburgh's at North Carolina. I'm surprised by some of these numbers. North Carolina is favored in this game by 7 points. You guys say?
I like North Carolina. I don't know if I'd lay 7 with them. Yeah. But I like them to win. Are we doing against the spread?
Yeah, against the spread. Yeah,
we're doing a spread? We're doing spread? All right, you're going to take Pitt plus the 7.
I'm going to take Pitt as well. I think Carolina's going to look ahead. I mean, it's a big game coming up for them next week. Pitt, you're kind of taking them lightly. They got some players.
I'm actually impressed with your schedule look ahead. Nice call. I take Pitt plus 7, but I like Carolina to win the game. All right, Georgia's at Ole Miss. Ole Miss finds ways to blow big leads, 28-6 and 24-3. They also score a lot of points. Georgia needed a miracle last week, but they found it. Do they go on the road getting 7 points? I got Ole Miss winning the game. I'll take Georgia with the points.
That's a lot of points. I'm with you there. I like Ole Miss. I just think Georgia's been one of the biggest frauds right now in college football, so I'm going to go with Ole Miss. I think they finally boat race someone and hold on to the lead.
But you're going to give the 7?
Yep.
Okay. Wow.
I will as well. I think Ole Miss is going to play better, and I don't think they're going to lose 2 games at home in a row.
All right. Well, I'll take Georgia in the points, but I like Ole Miss to win the game. Tennessee, shockingly, is giving 7 points to the University of Florida, a team they haven't beaten in 42 years. So if Florida wins this game without their quarterback, without possibly Callaway, if they win this game again with Tennessee being one of the most talented teams in the country, just end it. End the just
they're not allowed to play again.
Take them off the schedule.
I mean, I'm picking Tennessee, damn it. Win 1 game.
But are you giving 7 points?
Yes. Florida is not going to play well without their they can't play without their quarterback.
The funny thing, that line, if it was
Traylon Harris beat Tennessee.
If it wasn't for the history, I think the line would be like 18 points. I mean, there's everything for them, but I mean that's what's crazy about this. But you just can't look at these teams and take full, even with 7 points. Florida probably will end up winning, but there's just no rationally you can take them. You can't rationally do this. So I got to go with Tennessee.
Tennessee's turned into a Georgia fan when they face Florida. It's like, how are we losing to them again? This is not possible.
When Tennessee finally wins it, they're going to win by like 60.
Well, then it'll have to be this Saturday. This is the one, right? I'll take Tennessee and I'll give the 7. Rocky Top. Wow. Good Lord. You don't win this one. We're done here. We're done. I'll never sing it again. LSU is getting 3.5 at Auburn. I like Auburn's defense. I hate Auburn's offense. I do like Auburn's defense. They're a lot better than they were a couple years ago. Give me LSU.
I'm taking Auburn. I'm going with Auburn.
Are you really?
Yeah.
4-0 game.
two safeties. That's a cover.
I just don't like. I don't like LSU playing away from home. I'm going with Auburn.
Auburn is just so god awful. I can't take them. That's not a big point spread. I got to go with LSU in this one.
I'm going to take LSU as well. I was wrong. Stanford's giving 3 at UCLA. Stanford will win by 30.
I like Stanford.
Not a UCLA fan. Stanford on that one.
FSU is giving 6.5 at South Florida. I don't trust.
Make our picks here, I guess, huh?
Do you want to do that?
Yeah. Or should I we'll wait for the next one. Let's not do this.
You know what? This segment's over anyhow. We'll come back and give you that. How about that for a tease, an accidental tease on the Warchant.com report. We'll give our picks. Florida State, South Florida next. Welcome back to the Warchant.com report. This will be short and sweet. Here we go. Does Florida State bounce back, go on the road, get a win down in Tampa, take out the South Florida Bulls, move forward confidently into their game against North Carolina? And if so, what's the score?
I don't know if I'd say bounce back. They mean stagger back. I think Florida State's going to win this game. I'm not. My heart's not in it. I'm not 100%
you don't sound like a guy that believes Florida State's going to win this game.
Florida State's going to win 27-21, but man, it could be ugly. And I don't think USF's that good. And as good as the people, the 10 wins in the last 12 games is impressive. I'm not sold on with some of the guys they lost from last season. I think Florida State's going to win the game, but man, I think it's going to be ugly. I don't think people are going to leave that game feeling like last week was an aberration.
Willie Taggart's a really good coach, and he's going to have those kids believing that they can beat Florida State. This is a program right now. There's no other way to put it. We're reeling. You don't play like that and not be up against the ropes. How will they bounce back? Do they bounce back here?
They've got to be angry, right? I mean, if they can win with a little bit of passion, you said, Jeff, they missed a lot. They didn't have that, but they've got to have that in this game, don't they? I'm thinking they are. So the reason is I'm going to go with FSU in the win. I think the line last I saw was 6.5. I think FSU covers by half a point. So I'm going to go 37-30 Florida State. I think the one thing, I think FSU's offense will be able to move the ball very effectively against USF.
Giving up 30 points to South Florida.
I don't see enough signs on the defense.
And they've got to give up 63
they can move the ball.
and whatever we gave up on the opening night against Ole Miss, and then at the end of the year against Houston. So what you're telling me is we can't play defense at all. And at which point you're going to have to make changes. I mean, that's remarkable. 30 points to South Florida.
And what are you picking there, Jeff?
I'm wavering. I am not kidding. I am wavering. I really am close to pulling the trigger on South Florida. I think this program is in a little bit of trouble here. I'm going to take Florida State because I'm going to have to really be thoroughly proven, I guess, right in the wrong way before I go against them in the North Carolina game at home. I'll take Florida State to win the game 34-24. I don't feel that good about the pick. I'm just gonna say that. We're all taking Florida State, but I feel like I'm going kicking and screaming, picking my beloved Noles. But there wasn't a lot to feel good about. But I do think they will move the ball. I agree with you there. I do think they'll simplify an awful lot here, and I think athlete for athlete, Florida State's good enough to win this game. But I don't know if they care.
And we'll see. And this game's going to tell you a lot. No matter what the final score is, no matter how they execute, just the competitive spirit will tell you a lot.
For Ira Schoffel and Gene Williams, Ryan Kelly behind the camera, thanks so much for watching, everybody. I'm Jeff Cameron. You guys take care. We'll talk to you next week.
Like our videos? Then you'll love being a premium member of Warchant.com with exclusive access to breaking news, insight, and analysis from the best on the beat. Enter the promo code WARCHANT30 on our sign-up page and get exclusive premium access for free for the next 30 days. Warchant.com, your ultimate Seminole sports source.